1 month ago today, we got the most sold Metroid game remastered, announced, shadow dropped, and we thought it went above and beyond all expectations. But let's really talk about it for what it is 1 month later. Heads up, there will be a spoiler warning when I get that far, but stick around for the spoiler-free conversation. Everyone wants to know if nostalgia is getting in the way of my opinions. I will be straight with you. Although I am a Metroid fan and played Metroid Prime previously, until this remaster, it wasn't even on my list for the most liked Metroid games. What? Shocking, I know. Everyone would tell me how good it was, and eventually I did beat it about 5 years ago. But it never seemed better than the previous Metroid games at the time. In my mind, it was just a Metroidvania game. It wasn't even a Metroid game, but after seeing the remaster, even with the YouTube compression, I could tell it looked good. So as a Metroid fan, I picked it up. Here's the thing, what I found, and did not expect, the remastered devs went out of their way to make this game not just look good, but playable for anyone looking to pick this up. Yeah, the devs put some time and effort to ensure that everyone had their playstyle available. And even the new dual stick option, which is widely considered such a big improvement over the previous styles, but there lies the option, if you want to play the GameCube controller style, or pointer style, or the word combination one, go for it, because you have options. Psst, there's also gyro too. But let's talk about the graphics, because how good does it actually look? After a month, some time to process and digging to find its flaws, I want to be crystal clear. You see, when you get the game and you start looking around, you realize something strange. Even the things you thought looked cheap in the trailers, or maybe you haven't watched the trailers, and you think it's probably just people making hype out of it, and although they are, this is still, by far, the best looking Switch game. Yes, I went there. Remember how I said I wasn't really attached to the original game? Well, honestly, I thought the original looked cheap for the most part. But I played it over a decade and a half after it came out, and it didn't age well. But then you have this game, nothing looks cheap. Its flaws are so minuscule and are so hard to point out. And to be honest, if you said this was a next-gen game, or rather this gen game, I would believe you. As is, I had to do some comparisons between a next-gen game to even find its flaws. That's how far I had to go to find flaws. And it's not even flaws at that point, because this game basically says no to flaws and yes to everything else. Even when comparing them, I found I like the way the remaster was done better than the next-gen games. It feels much easier to look at and more realized. This is one of those games that no video or stream can show how good it actually looks. I actually had to start streaming it because I was literally walking around with my mouth open questioning, how in the world is this running on a Switch? And by the time I got to the first actual boss, I stopped and told myself, I have to capture my vocal reaction as a reminder to myself in the future and for what this game has accomplished. And as I streamed it, everyone was talking about how good it looks on the stream. But the thing is, it looks nearly twice as good when playing it yourself. I literally felt like I was doing a crappy job of showing what the game had to offer because none of the streams or recordings could get up to the quality of what I was seeing on my end. But let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, the doors. Because they don't look good, right? Like one of the original devs had to point it out. But first of all, if we're at the point where we're looking at the repeating texture that serves as a next room loading switch, then that should say enough as is. But the matter of the fact is, this was clearly done on purpose. And although it's harder to see early on, you can see later with some of the other colored doors that you'll realize the light bounces off the new design much better, and overall makes the doors look more vibrant than the original, and therefore, easier to see. To end off the topic, no Switch game should technically ever look this good, but the Prime devs and the outsourced companies somehow did it. I also wanted to answer some questions surrounding the game. I've actually had a few people ask about the difficulty, but let your worries rest, because this Metroid game is actually one of the more welcoming in that regard. The game even has a casual mode for those looking just to beat the game, but even as someone who doesn't play a lot of FPS style games, the normal mode was actually a comfortable experience. The only thing that was kind of difficult was the final boss, which I'm not going to talk about yet. But yes, this is probably one of the most friendly Metroid games to newcomers. Another thing to go along with that is a lot of people who haven't played this doesn't know that this game has an optional hint system, which I recommend you leave on, as it is on by default, especially if this is your first time playing. It tells you enough without giving you away any answers. If you're going before spoilers, I would like to say this. Now, when making this video, I thought waiting a month would give me more clarity to prove myself that the Prime Remaster has flaws, but even now as I'm trying to criticize it, it's so hard to see them, and the only other games on Switch that look anywhere close to as good are the stylized games. This is the most detailed game we have seen on the Switch, and the devs put so much effort into making this game a superior remaster that it would make it a shame to actually go back and play the old game. I didn't even talk about the new collectibles game from clearing the game, but above all, this shows how the remaster can and should be done right. Going forward, I want to talk about spoilers, so here's your warning to click off the video. If you finish the game, feel free to come back and finish watching the video, but if you don't want to get spoiled about what comes much later in the game, now is the time to leave. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed, or dislike if it was unbearable to watch. You gone? Good. Well, I guess I lost everyone. So if you're still here, type strawberry jam in the comments. No one will ever know. One of the biggest topics that I wanted to mention that I couldn't really do without spoiling the game is when you're in the final couple hours of the game, and I didn't really realize until I was in the middle of beating Metroid Prime, is when looking back on the game, you start to put the pieces together and realize that no part of the game looked bad. When I originally watched the trailer, I saw the Omega Pirate, you know, the phase on enhanced big guys. I really thought they didn't look good in the trailers. Matter of fact, I thought they looked bad in my first impressions. But I don't know if it was YouTube compression or what, because when I got there, you realize how detailed they look, and it's quite amazing. It actually took me by surprise, and before getting the Phase-On suit, I kind of expected it to not really look good, because, well, the trilogy version was just bland. And yet again, I was surprised at how good it looks, and now it's probably my favorite Metroid suit. It's so shiny! But then the final boss. They seriously did some revamping, because the final boss is kind of nightmare fuel. The Metroid Prime has giant teeth going across his body, and then in the second phase, it's like a no-mouth being that is like a Slenderman or something, but this time it's bright and colorful, and boy oh boy does it look good. And the last thing I wanted to mention in the spoiler is that in the scene with Samus, which apparently is a new face, but they made it so you can see the pain that the battle had caused her. She looked down at the fallen, forgotten temple of the Chozo who spoke so highly of her and prepared this for her, and it's now burning. This is such a good bad moment when you realize how it's all connected, and well done.